full support of net neutrality, barring telecom companies from offering differential tariffs depending on the internet content. The move comes as a big setback to zero-rating platforms like Bharti Airtel's Airtel Zero, as well as Facebook's Free Basics. In its order, the regulator says that no service provider shall offer or charge discriminatory tariffs for data services on the basis of content. TRAI has also made it clear that no service provider shall enter into any sort of agreement and arrangement that has the effect of discriminatory tariffs for data services being offered or charged to the consumer on the basis of content. Those violating, in fact, could face a penalty up to 50 lakh rupees per day. For more on that now, I'm delighted to be joined by Sameer Saran at the Observer Research Foundation and Rohin Dharmakumar, co-founder at Owntastic. Let me come straight to you first, Rohin, because even though clearly it would seem that the TRAI has been influenced largely by many of the arguments that people like you have been making, but still the question remains that zero rating app is allowed in countries like US and EU. Over 50% of telecom operators around the world offer zero rating app. Why is the India context different from what's happening in some of the other global markets? If yes, then how?
Yeah, sure. I think the regulator has answered this question quite clearly in today's paper, where it says that while we studied various countries and their regulations on differential pricing, and it does mention the US and EU, it also mentions countries where differential pricing is explicitly banned. The distinction it uses in the case of India is that India is a developing country where the large majority of our population has yet to get online. Therefore, the potential for zero rating or differential pricing to influence how people conceive and use the internet is much higher in India as compared to a US or EU, which are developed countries where people have already used the internet and have the ability to pay for it.
Right. Sameer, you, in fact, in one of your articles in the Times of India, you wrote about how this has become a noisy and a very shrill debate where, the issue of net neutrality is, in fact, far more complex. So would you say that going by the policy statement, the order that TRAI has come out with this afternoon, it takes into account the complexities, the nuances that you were alluding to?
Ranajoy, I think in the introduction, when you introduced my co-panelist as a supporter of net neutrality, kind of singled me out to being someone who doesn't support that. So I first want to clarify that I am all for
fair enough. I'm sure we all are. Absolutely.
And I must say that what we have witnessed in the last 1 year is a remarkable mobilization of public conversation on this very crucial public policy issue, and I hope some other key policy areas also witness such robust debate. So let me say that this debate is good.
Right.
What we saw is healthy. Now the question comes: what the regulator did lazy, or is it nuanced, and does it go into the complexities of the matter? And for me, I think there are three layers that I'm really not certain. I want to digest the order, but I have three questions that I just want to put out there. The first is this order positioning the TRAI as a competition regulator? Because I see this as an economic order which talks about consumer harm, it talks about competition itself a few times. And so are we looking at this as a matter of competition? If we are, that's good news. And I think that's the right way to go about it. And if you see restrictive trade practice or consumer harm or monopolistic behavior, it must be clamped down on. And if they have used that idea, and I mean, perhaps TRAI is not the right authority to be doing that, but irrespective of who has done it, that's a good idea. Number two, and I think that's important, are we also fearful of any monopoly or duopoly or a predatory behavior in the telecom market, which is 22 years old or maybe older than that, which has 8 to 10 operators in for every consumer as a choice? Are we creating a Frankenstein where it does not exist? In a sense, there is agency with the user, and have we discounted that agency? That's the second question. The third question is, and believe you me, free basics is a bad idea. I think it was an ill-conceived scheme, and it was an absolutist scheme which met a absolutist regulatory response. But has the market gained is my larger question here. I am not in any case wanting to defend what the free basing offering was. It was badly designed. The final point is that are we going to move beyond reactive bans to ideas, or are we going to set regulatory principles that others can, in a sense, create offerings through? For example, I had in my paper that you refer to, suggested 4 ideas. That if someone was to come up with an offering which has a must carry, must provide provision, which means anyone who wants to offer their content has to be carried, and anyone who has, you know, and the pricing cannot be discriminatory. I had said, why don't we use this as a basis of public service, where the Digital India ideals could be, you know, could ride over such offerings? Yeah.
Right, then Sameer, then are you essentially implying that the final order then perhaps is too simplistic? Because yes, you did, you know, you did sort of come up with your own policy options and perhaps, you know, the way forward as far as this issue of net neutrality goes. But do you think in the final order is perhaps a bit too simplistic then, Sameer?
I think it is nearly as simple as the free basics proposal was. Let me put it this way. So let me put it this way. I think the government has missed the bus here. They could have been creative. And I was reading an article by Milind Deora a long time back, who said that, you know, there was a creative way of mixing public service with a profit service. And in that sense, if we were to bring in people who want to make money out of the billions who are yet to join the internet, can we impose certain conditions, certain obligations which could allow more meaningful penetration?
Right. You come in on that now, Rohin, because, you know, the basic idea, at least, you know, the idea that was being proposed and propounded by the likes of Facebook was of, you know, was that of accessibility, especially when like millions of users do not have access to, you know, the internet. Facebook would have been, so sort of, you know, would have been a tool, a gateway, you know, for them to at least have access to some of the free apps. As far as the issue of accessibility goes, now that this, now that TRAI has come out and cleared the air, how do you see the issue of accessibility now being addressed in the context of today's TRAI order?
I think it's a welcome move that our focus has slowly shifted from, is it free basics, is it Facebook, to now we are all talking about, all right, so internet accessibility and affordability is a problem, and what kind of mechanisms can we evolve for it? Will the government be involved? Will private sector be involved? What kind of, moves will we need? I frankly don't have one answer. I think we'll all have to kind of experiment and arrive at that, but I do want to call out the disingenuous argument that free basics or Facebook is about, it increases affordability or it makes it easier for people to use the internet. I think we've seen no evidence so far that the people who are using free basics are what Facebook claims it is. I mean, there was this very detailed article on Medium a couple of days back where the reporter spent a lot of time reporting and interviewing a lot of people, and she asked Facebook, can you point me to one person who's a free basics user who is very poor and is a first-time internet user? And it was very revealing that Facebook could not point that report to even one user of free basics who's a first-time user. So I think we need to kind of call the bluff on Facebook's argument that free basics is about making it more affordable. I mean, I don't think we've seen any evidence apart from Facebook's claims.
Right, Sameer, just come in on that, because in one of your papers that was was put up on the ORF website. Yeah, I mean, would you want to dispute some of the things that Rohin is saying, because in one of your authors I actually talked about. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I actually want to support this, complement this. I'm saying, let's make this the point of departure. That let's agree with that fact that free basics cannot point us to one first-time internet user who has benefited from this particular service. Now, I think this is where, if we were to be smart regulators, if we were to be smart in management of clearly a medium with huge potential, we could have stipulated that if you want to be tapping into the metros and the peri-urban and the tier B and C towns of India, please ensure that 25, 30, 40% of your users have to cater to the first time, the category who are still unconnected.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I am not saying free basics works in its current avatar. It's bad. And I certainly feel that free basics hijacked the debate over
but the fact is, Sameer, TRAI has not made But the fact is that TRAI has not come out with those caveats, right? I mean, that is,
That's right.
that is the larger issue that I'm trying to flag.
So instinctively, that is what I'm uncomfortable with, that it is an absolutist regime. And I think absolutist regimes are generally lazy regimes. And I think perhaps with time, but again, I'm a believer that regulations evolve. And I believe that other than the fact that I'm sure there would be a set of aggrieved parties who would be going to the High Court, another set who would be going to the TDSAT. But other than that, I do believe regulations will also evolve organically as societies change their preferences. And I do believe that this is an absolutist stipulation, and it will need to have a few more layers added to it. And I have no doubt that over the years we'll see that happen.
Okay, hold those thoughts, gentlemen. We'll have to quickly take a break. On the other side, we'll come back and continue the discussion. Stay tuned. Back, we're in conversation with Sameer Saran of ORF and Rohin Dharmakumar, a co-founder at Owntastic. Gentlemen, we need to wrap up this conversation. So I have one final question, a common question to both of you. Rohin, you come in on this first. You know, especially at a time when the world is talking about the fourth industrial revolution. In fact, that was the main topic of discussion even at Davos. There's a larger academic debate panning, around the world, which is the role that regulation is going to play, in fostering technological innovation. In the context of that, how do you see the TRAI policy paper that has been put out today?
I think it's fantastic. Frankly, I'd use the word historic to describe TRAI's paper today, and I don't use that word lightly. It's one of the most progressive regulations that we've seen on the internet from any regulator around the world, and they're saying a lot. And what we call simplistic is essentially very complex. If you read the paper, if you go through TRAI's process, the number of people that it spoke to, and the decision that it took finally, I mean, not lightly, I would like to add.
Yes.
I don't think it's simplistic. I think it's very clear. It sets the rules for what we can expect the Indian internet to be. It understands the vital role of the internet in our digital economy, and it safeguards the internet. So I don't think, I think it's like stupendous. I mean, as I say, I'm not one to use these kind of words lightly, but that's what it is.
No, absolutely, Rohan. In fact, point taken, because I think some of the arguments and the manner in which TRAI has actually fleshed out the arguments that were put forth on both sides and given its reasoning is quite remarkable. Sameer, final word then to you. You started off by saying that it was a healthy debate that we saw, leading up to the TRAI policy paper today. So in the context of the sort of technological innovation that India would need, and with programs like Digital India, is this going to sort of enable technological innovation, or is this perhaps a stumbling block?
I think, Ranachoy, the very process that has led to this final policy pronouncement by TRAI was, in a sense, itself a manifestation of innovative India. I think the way it panned out over the last year or so, where the technology was used, where you had cynics and comics and the DDoS attacks by everyone and everyone's grandchild, showed that we are now reaching a new maturation in terms of how we approach policy. The innovation is not only about finding that new technology, but also about conducting day-to-day businesses. So I think this paper, this pronouncement itself is part of our innovation, new innovation age. And certainly regulation will have to be far more sophisticated. When I said simplistic, I did not imply that this did not take everything into consideration, but I think it's absolutist. Maybe simplistic is the wrong word. It's quite absolute in its pronouncement, and that's where I was.
Right. We'll go to leave it at that then, gentlemen. Thank you very much to both Sameer Saran and Rohin for joining us for a rather complex debate at this, but thank you very much.